Today I'm going to share with you 3 emotions you never want your audience to feel during your speech. Hello, my name is Brenda Chidamura, and I'm the creator and founder of Public Speaking Masterclass. Welcome to this video. I help professionals develop speaking confidence and articulation that helps them to stand out and get promoted wherever they go. A few years ago, I shared the story of the American Revolution with one of my friend's daughters. She was absolutely enthralled by how exciting everything had happened during the American Revolution. And so since she was so into it, we decided that we would go to one of the monuments that talks about the American Revolution so that she gets the whole experience. So the day finally came when we would go to this particular monument and learn from the guide all of the different details that we don't always get when we read a book. Our guide finally entered, and then he started to talk about all of the different things that happened. But unfortunately, almost from the get-go, we could not hear anything he was saying. He was mumbling, and his voice was very low, and it seemed like the things that he was saying were really scattered, and we couldn't quite figure out his train of thought. So at first he thought that things were going to get better, but unfortunately, as he kept going, it got worse. It got to the point where he went and he stood by the window and started talking about tulips. So you can imagine how all of us were looking at each other, wondering what was going on and what we were missing, because we did not understand anything he had said. It was such a disappointment, and it was so frustrating. And mind you, I should mention that this was very unusual for this particular monument because I've been there a few times. So I know that the guides are really, really good. So this was more of a one-off incident. But of course, as we kept hearing him talk, we realized that we were not going to get anything out of the lecture, and we all just gave up. But this was a little too much for my friend's daughter, who actually started crying because she was so frustrated that she hadn't gotten anything out of the talk that she had been looking forward to for so long. This is exactly what you do not want when you give your speech. The opportunity of you standing in front of people and sharing something with them means that you already have a captive audience. So the best thing you can do is to ensure that you give them the best experience possible by ensuring that you avoid the 3 emotions that I'm going to be sharing with you. The first emotion you want to make sure your audience never feels when they're listening to you is to be confused. You never want them to wonder, what was the point of that whole speech? Because first of all, your ideas were scattered, they were disorganized, and they seemed to lack any sort of focus. And that means that as soon as you know you're going to give a speech, you should understand what the primary one thing is that you want them to get out of your talk. If, for instance, I am going to give a talk on Philadelphia, I am going to probably talk about the firsts that are all in Philadelphia, because there are so many things that happened for the first time in Philadelphia, and people would really enjoy that. If perhaps I'm speaking about another city like Seattle, maybe I would talk about coffee and make that the theme of the city. Whoever is listening to me has to get away from my speech knowing that they understood what that primary thing was, and they can take that with them. That focus helps your audience to grasp all of the different concepts of what you want to say. The more they feel like they understood what you were saying, the more they're going to be invested in listening to you. The second emotion that you want to avoid when you're giving your speech is the sense of your audience feeling frustrated. Normally when your audience feels frustrated, it is because, first of all, they cannot hear what you're saying. And so that means they're constantly having to work hard just to understand what you're saying. And that in itself becomes almost a second job for them, along with them trying to understand all of the scattered thoughts that you're giving them. So you want to make sure that, first of all, you are always speaking in a voice where everyone in that room, including the person at the back, can hear you. The other thing that will frustrate your audience is when you mumble. It is so crucial that you pronounce your words so that everyone who is listening to you grasps the validity and the power of your words. because that in itself will ensure that your ideas land in a clear and powerful way for them to take in. The other thing that will frustrate your audience is you speaking too fast. If they cannot even get a breath in internally because you are speaking so fast and they cannot comprehend and digest what you're saying, that means they're going to be frustrated. It's almost as if someone is force feeding them all these ideas and they cannot swallow and actually digest all of the things that you're giving them. So it's important that you speak at a good pace that allows the person who's listening to you to, first of all, hear what you're saying, secondly, ingest what you're saying, and then thirdly, digest what you're saying. The third emotion that you never want your audience to feel is to be bored. And normally that happens because you are speaking in a monotone voice. And that means your voice was so flat that it had no inflections the whole time you were speaking. And it will come across this way. Hello, my name is Brenda, and I'm here to talk to you about why it is important that you speak in inflection. If someone is listening to you, it is going to induce sleep and absolute boredom in their psyche as they're trying to focus. It's always so important that you put yourself in your audience's shoes, because what they're encountering when they have such a monotone voice almost feels like someone giving them a bowl of very plain oatmeal with no seasoning, no nothing to it, and they're expected to digest it. Not many people are going to be so keen to eat that. What they would rather have is an interesting meal with different flavors, different colors, and different textures, because that makes for a really palatable and exciting meal. The same thing goes for your speech. The more you are able to add interesting inflections, interesting visuals, and sounds to your speech, the more it's going to be interesting for them. It's going to keep them engaged. The one thing you never want them to say is, "Why did I come?" That's usually an indication that they felt like you were not there for them because your speech had no life to it. It had no passion. And if you're not passionate about what you're talking about, how can they be passionate about what you're about to say to them? So it's really important that you make sure that you add passion, you add inflection in your voice, you add interesting visuals in the form of slides or even interesting props as you are talking to them, so that they really feel, first of all, your thoughtfulness in helping them to understand your subject through all of these different things. But secondly, that you are passionate about what you're talking about and you are invested in it. Now, if you have ever felt left out or frustrated during a speech, you know how it feels. So comment yes down below so that we see how many people have encountered this experience of feeling like the speaker was not interested in connecting with their audience. Now, I know we said that we would talk about 3 emotions you want to avoid and you never want your audience to feel when they listen to your speech, but I do have one more bonus emotion to share with you, and that is the feeling of being left out of your speech altogether. And normally that happens when you stand on the stage and you hide behind the podium and you look like you are making the podium your way of avoiding the public. So it's important that if you're going to use a podium, that you sometimes move away from it and move a little bit, or at least use gestures so that they feel like they're connected to someone who is alive, who is present, and who wants to connect with them. The other thing you want to do is to make sure that you do not read your whole speech the whole time you're talking. You are putting your head down and disconnecting from the people in front of you. Because the most important thing you want to remember when you give a speech is that public speaking is about a positive connection with yourself as well as a positive connection with your audience. So always keep in mind that every time you are talking, it's an opportunity to connect with these people. More than getting ideas from you, they want to understand who you are and they want to enjoy this person who is sharing these ideas with them. So I hope these tips were helpful to you. Please try and make sure that you keep in mind all of these emotions and avoid them as much as possible. Use all of the different things we've talked about today to ensure that your speech is alive, is compelling, is interesting, and is really engaging so that your audience feels like they had an experience through your speech. Thank you so much for joining me in this video. I'll look forward to sharing more tips with you in the future videos to come. So make sure you subscribe below and ring the bell so that you get all the notifications when a new video appears. Thanks again for watching, and here is to your success.